The war changed when Japan stopped fighting for turf and started attacking the money. In Fukuoka, the state tested the strategy that would later close in on Takayama. Brazen attacks on construction firms and civilian businesses forced local authorities to finally draw a line. Government officials scrambled to contain the violence, terrified that the escalating turf wars would permanently cripple investor confidence. In April 2010, Fukuoka enacted a devastating Yakuza exclusion ordinance, specifically designed to choke off the syndicate's financial lifeblood. Business owners were terrified of being labeled violators, a legal black mark that would instantly sever bank ties and ruin their livelihoods. By 2011, this legal weapon spread to Tokyo and Okinawa, transforming a local crackdown into a ruthless national crusade. Meanwhile, the ghosts of the past were catching up. In October 2009, prosecutors launched a final appeal in Takizawa's long-running legal battle. The Supreme Court brutally tore down his previous acquittals, sending the untouchable boss back for a high-stakes retrial. Takizawa looked visibly shaken as the legal machinery dragged him back into the Osaka District Court. Yet even as the state tightened its grip, the draconian exclusion laws provoked fierce resistance from civil rights critics and journalists. The syndicates were bleeding men. Between 2011 and 2012, registered Yakuza numbers plummeted from 32,700 to just 28,800. One veteran boss admitted the grim reality. The steady flow of protection money had completely evaporated under the new ordinances. The streets themselves were changing. Restaurants that once paid for protection cut all ties, terrified of public exposure and financial ruin. For men returning from prison, their underworld had vanished. One released foot soldier stood on a street corner, stunned by a city that had erased his existence. Merchants slammed their doors. Ordinary business owners were drawing a hard, unforgiving line against the Yakuza, while the new laws starved the streets. The police were quietly locking their crosshairs on the ultimate prize, Takayama Kiyoshi. Investigators built a devastating case, alleging Takayama had extorted 40 million yen from a construction firm under the guise of greeting fees. Under intense interrogation, Takayama fiercely denied everything, insisting the accusations were baseless as the legal trap closed around him. Then, the shockwave hit. The arrest of the Yamaguchi-gumi's absolute second-in-command dominated every national broadcast. Across Japan, television screens broadcasted an impossible reality. The untouchable architect of the empire was in handcuffs. The victim remained hidden under heavy police protection, terrified of the syndicate's inevitable retaliation. In June 2012, Takayama's trial commenced at the Kyoto District Court. Standing before the judge, Takayama vehemently denied the charges, fighting to maintain his aura of invincibility. Prosecutors systematically laid out a calculated scheme designed to bleed 40 million yen from a civilian contractor. The entire case hinged on this massive payout, thinly disguised as a traditional underworld greeting. 6 days into the trial, the court made a staggering decision regarding his bail. Bail was set at a record-breaking 1.5 billion yen, an astronomical figure. The sheer magnitude of the ransom placed the Yakuza boss in the same echelon as Japan's elite corporate criminals. Without blinking, Takayama produced the cash, securing his temporary freedom. He returned home under suffocating police scrutiny, fully aware that the state's net was still tightening. In March 2013, the Kyoto District Court delivered its final, devastating judgment. The gavel fell on a 6-year prison sentence for extortion and organized conspiracy. The judge ruthlessly condemned the severe psychological terror inflicted upon the victim. Takayama absorbed the sentence with stone-cold silence, but the reality was catastrophic. The 6th generation had just lost its ultimate operational commander. The court officially branded Takayama and his enforcers as a coordinated extortion ring. The conviction sent violent tremors through the very core of the Yamaguchi-gumi hierarchy. Takayama was dragged back behind bars, leaving his empire behind. Smelling blood, the police immediately ramped up pressure on the surviving leadership. His removal tore open a massive, bleeding power vacuum at the absolute summit of the organization. The physical headquarters still stood, but the syndicate was now navigating blindly without its ruthless architect of discipline. Deep fractures in the executive board exposed just how dangerously fragile the empire had become. Desperate senior figures scrambled to steady the faltering hierarchy, but the internal balance of power was already warping. Simultaneously, authorities systematically froze the syndicate's financial networks. Police no longer needed a high-profile arrest to dismantle a group. Outwardly, the Kobe headquarters remained an imposing fortress. Inside, paranoia and disorder was spreading like a virus. Locked in his cell, Takayama could do nothing but watch from the shadows as his carefully constructed order was tested. His absence rippled across the Japanese underworld, silently rewriting alliances that would shape the coming war. His imprisonment was only the beginning. It triggered a ruthless new era where traditional Yakuza economies began to collapse entirely. Meanwhile, the relentless legal hunt for Takizawa took yet another twisted turn. In a stunning defiance of the Supreme Court, a retrial delivered Takizawa a 3rd consecutive acquittal. But the state refused to lose. Prosecutors immediately dragged the case to the Osaka High Court. There, the High Court crushed the acquittal, trapping the aging boss in an endless cycle of legal purgatory. By 2011, the exclusion ordinances had blanketed the entire nation, suffocating every single syndicate in Japan. Inside tense government meeting rooms, officials plotted even deadlier strategies to eradicate anti-social forces. These new strategies transformed localized crackdowns into a nationwide siege. Now, Kobe and every major underworld stronghold was staring down the barrel of total financial ruin. The countermeasures law was weaponized through 5 aggressive revisions, methodically severing the Yakuza's cash flow. In 2012, police commanders deployed new designated group regulations, granting themselves unprecedented legal firepower. For decades, the underworld had feasted on illegal gambling and classic street-level extortion. Before the crackdown, greeting fees flowed smoothly through VIP rooms, treated as just another cost of doing business. The new laws specifically targeted this gray zone, criminalizing the very act of using a syndicate's name to settle debts or disputes. For the syndicates, the transition was lethal. Hustling cash without triggering an immediate arrest had become practically impossible. With every legal amendment, the noose tightened. Vague guidelines were forged into ironclad arrest warrants. Starved of traditional rackets, desperate syndicates were forced into darker, invisible crimes. This desperate pivot would soon rewrite the rules of the underworld. State pressure had successfully driven the violence off the streets, but it hadn't killed the beast. It merely forced the Yakuza into a colder, invisible, and far more dangerous evolution